So good evening, everybody. We are just waiting for you all to log on to our session this evening. We'll give it a couple of minutes before people all get here. Over 200 people registered to be on the webinar with us tonight, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're very excited to kickstart the season with this session tonight. So we'll just give it a minute or two for some more people to join, and then we will get started. Everyone's very quiet. So we have lots of people coming in there, and we will have Rebecca Sutherland, Lewis Peacock, Dean Smith. We'll have our race referee on with us as well shortly. And we have the athlete services team, Freya and Sarah, behind the scenes, as well as our marketing team, well, our marketing manager behind the scenes as well, ready to answer any of your questions. So still lots of people still coming in, but we will, I think we will get started. So first of all, you're very welcome to this evening's session with your IRONMAN UK Race Directors, head referee as mentioned, and members of the athlete services team. This session will be both informative and interactive, and we hope you will gain lots of insight and tips for your race with us over the coming weeks. Tonight's session will focus on our 3 upcoming races. That's Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire on the 11th of June, Ironman UK on the 2nd of July, and Ironman 70.3 Swansea on the 16th of July. However, lots of the general racing and event information will be applicable across all of the Ironman UK and Ireland events this year. This evening's session is being recorded and will be available to watch back at a later date. So please keep an eye on the socials for the link. Before we get started, a quick introduction from me. My name is Joanne Murphy. I will be moderating this evening's session. I've been part of the Ironman announcing team for almost 12 years and have been very privileged to welcome thousands of athletes onto the Ironman and Ironman 70.3 finish line since first picking up the microphone in 2011. I'll be joined this summer once again by Jay Luke, and we will also have some new voices join the announcing team over the coming months. Before we get started, I'd love to know where you are tuning in from and what race you are doing. Is this your first Ironman 70.3 or Ironman? You can post your info into the chat, and you can also post your questions in the chat as well. And we'll be getting to them later on during the session. Now, let's meet your race directors. Lewis Peacock, race director for Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire on the 11th of June. Dean Smith, race director for Ironman UK on the 2nd of July. And Rebecca Sutherland, our race director for Swansea on the 16th of July. Well, team, you're all very welcome to this evening's webinar. Who would like to go first to introduce themselves?
I'll kick things off. Yeah, my event is first Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire. So I'm Lewis. I've been at Ironman for a couple of years now. This year we're really looking forward to going back to Staffordshire. We have some really exciting changes actually for this year that we haven't had previously. First of all, we have tweaked the swim slightly. So there'll be a new swim exit coming through. We've just tweaked it slightly, so it should be a much easier exit for the athletes. We've got some nice rubber matting, which should make it a little bit more comfortable. But other than that, chase water is going to be as beautiful as ever, and it's going to be a really good swim there. Jumping onto the bike course real quick, pretty much the same. We've got a nice little tweak at the end, which means you're going to be going into transition the same way as run out. So you'll get to see the runners heading out as you're going into transition, which will be quite a nice little change. And the run course. So the run course, we've got a completely new finish line. So that is going to be really exciting for this year. We've moved on from Market Square and we are down sort of on South Walls Road. So it's really in amongst all the restaurants and the cafes. So it should be a really, hopefully sunny and vibrant atmosphere there on the day.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire. It's always a great way to kickstart the season, Lewis, and we've actually had really good weather as well for that race. From as far as I can remember, we've had good weather for the race. Now, Rebecca, I'm going to come to you next because you're also race director for 70.3, slightly later in the year, but it's Ironman 70.3 Swansea. So let's go straight to that before we talk to Dean about the full distance race in Bolton on July 2nd.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. So Swansea is slightly earlier this year than we previously had. We will still be partnering with the World Triathlon Para Series as well. So if you're around on race day, make sure you pop down on Saturday to watch their race as well. As a whole, the race went well for its first year last year. We were super happy. The weather definitely helped. So this year, basically, it's majoritarily, sorry, it's staying the same. But we do have a new bike course. Hopefully an improved bike course. We'll go into it in a bit more detail later on. But really, the basis stays the same. Swim is staying the same, run is staying the same, and our venues as well. So if you were there last year, you should be really familiar with the setup for this year, and hopefully we'll book the weather.
Well, I don't know about that now, Rebecca, because it was very warm last year. I'm not giving out or anything. We did love the warm weather, but it was another fantastic race day at Ironman 70.3 Swansea. So also looking forward to that. And then Dean, Ironman Bolton, Ironman UK 2023, the first of our full distance events for this year. What can our athletes expect and look forward to?
Yeah, hi Joe. Yeah, welcome everybody to the call. Ironman UK Bolton, this year the 14th year of the event, the original one in the UK. Yeah, I've been race director for this. Has been my second year, 5 years at Ironman, but over 20 years in sports events. But absolutely love the Bolton event. I hope all of you guys taking part will do as well. The swim this year is a little different to previous years in that we have 2 laps of the course, which is as it always has been, but this year there's no Aussie exit, so you'll be doing 2 laps in the water. There's a new timing gate, in-water timing gate that you'll swim through at the end of the first lap and go straight onto your second lap. So you won't get out of the water, do the run on the shoreline, and then get back into the water as had been part of the course in previous years. So it is 2 laps all in the water. So hopefully that simplifies things a little for everyone taking part. The bike course, we have had to recently make a change to the bike course due to some construction, some subsidence on the course in near Bury. So we have changed the course slightly. Those of you that have already done your recce's, don't worry about it. It's still nearly 90 miles of the 112 is the same. The elevation, I'm sorry, has gone up a tiny bit, but it's more or less the same as it was previously. It's still a hard course. Yeah, most of the course is pretty similar. And the run is exactly the same as previous years. They're a tried and tested course through Bolton Town Centre. All the crowds that will be out there, as they always are in Bolton, come rain or shine. We don't need the good weather to get the crowds out in Bolton.
Well, that is the one thing that all of our athletes can expect on race day is an amazing atmosphere and a great crowd and a fantastic welcome in each of the locations. Now, Lewis, the finish line in Staffordshire is changing, as you've mentioned. Why is that? Oh, I think you're muted. Yeah, there we go.
Always had to be one. Yes, there's a bit of work going on in Market Square. They're redeveloping it, so it should look really nice. However, we are unable to be there for the finish this year. So we've made the opportunity to move down to South Walls Road, which is about 300-400 metres from where the finish was previously. So it's not a million miles away, but there's some really nice cafes down there, lots of sort of nice viewing spots. And yeah, I think it could well be a nice little change for this year's event.
And so, Lewis, that has slightly changed the run route as well, hasn't it? Just towards the end of it, it's slightly changed from last year. Not a huge amount, but just slightly.
Yeah, it's using a lot of the same roads as we have done previously. However, the route has reversed. So you'll be, unfortunately, heading out to the castle straight away. We've sort of detoured now through Victoria Gardens, which is a beautiful, beautiful little spot in Stafford. So you'll sort of traverse alongside the river once again. Out to the castle, up the climb, which I'm sure everyone is really looking forward to. But yeah, and then back through down and to do a loop of the town centre before doing off onto your second loop, and then yeah, finishing after your second loop on the South Walls.
And Dean, that's the other thing as well with Bolton. The athletes run past the finish line a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken, if things haven't changed. And that adds to the atmosphere on the day as well for the athletes to have extra support as they go out onto the next loop of their run course, but then obviously to keep the crowd right there until the very last athlete crosses the finish line after 17 hours.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually a 4-lap course, so you go past the finish line by the side of the finish line 4 times. So yeah, any spectators, supporters you've got out on the course, on the run course, will see you 4 times, even if they stay in the same place. There's bits where the bike course and run course are right next to each other as well. So it really is a very kind of spectator friendly event if you are bringing friends and family along.
And then Rebecca as well, just with Swansea, the run course actually went by the marina, if I'm not mistaken, last year and finished in the park by the library. And there was such an amazing atmosphere. I know the weather helped and we had some really big names racing with us as well, but the athletes can expect a similar finish line again this year.
Yeah, similar finish line. And I think we were all amazed by the support we had for the first year event on the run course. It was absolutely amazing. As you say, the weather did help, but it's what we're planning for this year. We're looking to get some more on-course entertainment on the run course, just to bring the extra buzz down at the far end where it gets a little bit lonely on the U-turn. But yeah, you can sort of expect the same amount of spectators, the same buzz. We just want to replicate what we did last year and make it even better.
Brilliant. Now, I know we are expecting Paul Lester, our chief race referee, to jump on the call as well. So, Paul, if you're on the call, I can't see you at the moment. If you're here, please turn on your camera and we will have a quick chat with you. And then we will go into a bit more detail in each of the events with our race directors. Lewis, talk us through the swim course, maybe to begin with, in Staffordshire. So it's a single loop, 1.2 mile swim course.
Yep, so single loop, sort of the finish and the start and finish are sort of a few hundred meters apart, but you'll head into the water. It's a deep water sort of start, so you'll go straight off the pontoon. You'll jump in and then you'll begin your swim. You'll be keeping all the yellow boys to your left hand side, and then you'll be turning at the orange boys. And just before you finish, there'll be an orange gate. You go through that, and then onto your nice cushioned matted exit.
Fantastic. We have male pros racing in Staffordshire this year.
Yeah, we've got a strong male pro field. They'll be heading off just before the age group rolling start.
Brilliant. And then in Bolton, Dean, you mentioned there that we no longer have the Aussie exit. So the athletes will swim through a timing gate. Explain to me how that will work actually in the water.
Okay, well, see, there's one timing gate at the start line before you get into the water on the pontoon. So you cross that as you get into the water. Athletes will enter the water. A few athletes every few seconds is the way it starts. It's not a big mass start or anything. It's very controlled flow into the water. As that's the same process for all of our races. If you go one time, that's when your personal time starts for the race. That's from what the cutoff times and so on later that I'm sure Paul will touch upon. That's from when they're calculated from the time that you cross the timing mat into the water. So you do that, you do one lap clockwise, 1900 meters clockwise. And at the end of that, there's a big yellow inflatable, call it a gate. There's obviously no moving parts to it. It's just an inflatable kind of arch thing that you swim through. And that won't provide like a lap time or anything, just records the people that go through. So we will be recording who's going through the laps at that point, so we know where people are on the course and that kind of thing. So you swim through that, enter onto your second lap, do exactly the same second lap, and then when you come to the end of the second lap, you come up the same pontoon that you started from through the timing mat there. That gives you your complete swim course time, and then you go off to transition.
Okay, and then for Swansea, Rebecca, is it going to be in the dock again this year?
Yeah, the plan is to be in the dock again. So it is the same layout as last year. It is one of our more confusing swim layouts, I'd like to say. So it is just a good idea for anyone to sort of familiarise themselves with the layout of the course. Saturday evening when we set the course and Sunday morning, just so you know. But yeah, all due to be the same, and the same sort of 400-meter run from swim exit to T1.
Okay, let's look at the bike course now, because each of the bike courses are quite different. Lewis, you have some amazing views and climbs and everything in your bike course. 850 meters of climbing in total, I believe. Talk us through some of the areas there on the bike course that the athletes should be looking out for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Staffordshire bike course is pretty sort of undulating, and there's a few little flat sections, but all in all, it's sort of up and down the whole way around. But there's nothing too crazy to be too worried about. There's a lovely climb up into Cannock Chase, and then a descent through there. That's probably one of the most beautiful spots on the course. And there's a nice section that you go over a reservoir, which I think is behind me at the moment. Just be careful, if it is a windy day, you need to hang on to your bikes, because there can be some nasty crosswinds there.
Are there any areas on that course, Lewis, where tri-bars, where you're not allowed to go down onto the tri-bars? I know there are in other races, but there's none on the Staffordshire course, is there?
No, none on the Staffordshire course. There's a lot of flat sections that are a bit sort of tricky and a bit sort of windy. So just be careful if you are dropping onto your tri-bars. Make sure you are being alert and not just putting your head down.
And of course, as with all of the races, anywhere where additional caution needs to be taken on the course, they will be highlighted on the course for you as well. Dean, talk me through the bike course. There's a slight change to the bike course this year. You mentioned earlier, extra elevation, same distance, extra elevation. And you also have, I hope you'll have them back, the Sheep House Lane Wrestlers.
Right, so let me deal with the elevation first. The elevation... so I'll give you some bit of background to the course here. So there's a section of the course just north of Bury. There's a village called Tottington, and then just north of that there's Turton Road, which has got some subsidence on it at the moment. If any of you have done recce's, you may have noticed there's some temporary traffic lights and so on in there, and the road has actually shifted a little bit. So we're not able to use that section of the road on the course. So that has been replaced with a slightly different course. The elevation. The bit we've replaced it with now goes up to a town called Darwen in Blackburn, near Blackburn, and the elevation has gone up very slightly. It's less than 100 metres. I know 100 metres is a significant amount, but it was already nearly 2,500. So I don't think it changes the course too much. Your training will still be valid, all the training that you have been doing. So yeah, I apologise, it's extra elevation. I'd love to have taken some out, but unfortunately weren't able to do that. So the new section of the course follows a road called Roman Road. If you're cycling it, if any of you are out doing recce's this weekend, don't be alarmed by the road surface. It's not in great condition at the moment, but you'll notice it has been marked by the council, and that's due for repair pretty soon. And then there's they come back down south along the A666, which should be a nice surface. So it does start with a bit of a climb as well. So it's a tough course for sure. One tip would be kind of bear in mind that the eastern half of the course is more difficult and probably has less good road surface as well generally than the western half does. Talking in very general terms, but when you get halfway through the first lap, don't panic about it too much. It does get a little bit better. There's a little bit more of downhill. You're at the highest point on the course when you hit Darwen, and you've gone through probably the hardest bits of the climbing and the roughest bits of the road. So look forward to the western half, although that does of course include some climbs as well.
Okay, well, it wouldn't be Ironman UK if it didn't have some climbs in it, to be fair. You never answered my question. You never answered my question about the Sheep House Lane Wrestlers.
Sheep House Lane Wrestlers.
Keeping them as a surprise for us.
Yeah, we hope they'll be returning. We have been in touch. I've seen their post on Facebook, which indicates that they will be there. Yes, so hopefully, yeah, we'll see them.
Brilliant. Well, they will add lots of fun and excitement and encouragement to the athletes as they make their way on the bike course. Rebecca, the bike course for Swansea, it has been changed to 1.5 loops. Talk to me about the bike course.
Yeah, so sort of after last year, as you can sort of appreciate with the first year event, we're trying to make athletes happy, but we're trying to also make the local residents happy. So this year we've tried to improve the race experience, but also give access to the local residents to the Gower. As you can expect, it is a busy place on a summer weekend. So as you mentioned, it is sort of 1.5 loops, and the maps and everything are on the website now. It's a very, very similar elevation to last year. It does have a few climbs in. We're calling it a mini 10B with the climbing. One specific one is you'll do the full lap, you'll come around to your second lap and you'll do a right-hand turn for your second lap to a place called Lunnon, and you basically go quite uphill. So we'll just recommend with any route drives or anything, just know to be in a low gear to make that right-hand turn for lap 2. But it's a mix of the Gower countryside. We tried to get a bit coastal in there with the mumbles, so a big mix of what you can expect, but hopefully a really, really good race.
Fantastic. Well, I think Paul Lester has joined the call now. So Paul, if you're there, if you could turn on your camera and your microphone, and we will say goodbye to our race directors for a few minutes. So Paul Lester, if you can turn on your camera and your microphone, that would be awesome. Adam, if you can look after that for me.
I think they're on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you, Paul. There we go. Dean, you can turn off your camera and your microphone as well. Thank you so much. Paul Lester, our Chief Race Referee for Ironman UK and Ireland. It's great to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you for the season. Welcome to this evening's webinar.
Thank you, Joe. It's great to be here, and hopefully we've got lots of people listening to what everybody said.
Yeah, we have indeed. We've just had a brief chat with our race directors with regards to racing, but I want to have a quick chat with you, Paul, about penalties and rules of racing and why we have all of this involved with a race such as an Ironman or an Ironman 70.3. So first off, what is the role of a race referee at an Ironman event?
So basically, the role of a race referee and all the officials who are there is to make sure that everybody at the race, 2,000 plus people, all have a safe race and a fair race. We know that most of you don't want to cheat. We know that most of you are there to do the best you can, fairly and sensibly. But there are a few people. They are all World Championship qualifying events, and therefore there are always a few people who think they're above the rules. So we try and stop them from cheating and from belittling the achievement that all of you make.
And so, Paul, how do the officials actually work with regards to the rules of racing and the penalties and the cards and things like that? Talk to us a little bit about the card system that Ironman uses for, I suppose, for people who infringe on the rules.
Okay, so we have 3 cards. I've got them here. I brought them along. So if you do something minor, out on the bike or on the run course, you'll be shown a yellow card. For a 70.3 event, that's a 30-second penalty. For an Ironman event, that's a 1-minute penalty. If you are seen drafting on the bike, so we'll probably talk about drafting a bit more, we'll explain what that is later on, but you'll be shown a blue card, which is a 5-minute penalty in the penalty box at transition area. If you do something very, very dangerous or very unsportsmanlike or obviously cheating in a very obvious and clear way, you'll be shown a red card and you'll be disqualified from the race.
And I believe if you get shown 3 blue cards during the race, you also end up being disqualified.
That's correct. Yeah. So you can have 2 drafting penalties, which would mean you would spend 10 minutes in the penalty box. If you have a 3rd one, that's a disqualification.
So how do people serve the penalties then? If you're out on the bike courses and a referee shows you a blue card, how do you serve your penalty?
You serve your penalty in the penalty box, which will be in transition area. It's a big yellow tent, clearly marked. It should be up when you rack your bike, so you can see exactly where it is. When you come in from the bike, you stop at the penalty tent. You tell them you've had a yellow card or a blue card. They will start a watch for you, the officials at the penalty tent, and time you your 1 minute, 30 seconds or 5 minutes, however long it might be.
And I think as well, Paul, what's key here is that you're not allowed to do anything whilst you're in the penalty tent. You're not allowed to eat anything, I believe, eat anything or drink anything or do anything that would benefit you for when you get back onto the race course again.
That's right. We will allow you to drink something, especially if it's a hot day. We don't want you to get dehydrated, obviously, but you're not allowed to do anything that would benefit you for the rest of the race. Yeah.
Okay. And so, Paul, how do we avoid getting penalties?
You abide by the rules. That's the easiest way. So the best way to do that is to have a look at the rules. There's a link on every event site to the full set of rules, and there is if you search for Ironman rules in Google or whatever, that will bring up the full set of rules. So the referees, remember, are not there to give as many penalties as possible. They're all there to give you a fair race and a safe race. And if you get excited when you come in from your bike and you undo your helmet accidentally before you get there, they won't automatically give you a penalty. They'll stop you, they'll ask you to do your helmet back up and get you to carry on. And we're not about handing out thousands of penalties. So we will try and help you and educate you as much as we can.
So speaking about the bike, Paul, you mentioned there drafting. So for the athletes that don't know what drafting is, what is it?
Okay, so most of us, when we do our training, we'll have trained with other people and we'll know how much easier it is to ride behind somebody else. I think they reckon you get a 30% advantage from just sitting close behind somebody else. Ironman events are all individual events, and therefore you are not allowed to sit close behind somebody else. The draft zone in an Ironman event is 12 meters. That's 12 meters from the front of the person in front's wheel to your wheel behind them. If you enter that zone, you must overtake the person in front. You have 25 seconds to do that. Once you get alongside them and your wheel goes in front of them, the overtaken athlete, it's then their responsibility to drop back to outside the drafting zone. So they have 25 seconds to do that.
And if they don't drop back out of the drafting zone, then they can be penalised. They
can be penalised, and they must drop back out of the drafting zone before they re-overtake if they feel like they can go faster again.
Okay.
I ought to mention as well, when you go out on the bike, there's lots of you out there. We know that on the hills and near the start of the race, you're going to have a job finding enough space to ride 12 meters apart. The motos who are out there, there will be, at most events, there will be 15, 20 motos out there looking after you. They all know that it's hard for you to find your space, and they will be looking at your intention. If you are deliberately riding behind somebody else to get an advantage, that's when you'll get a penalty. If you are going up a hill and everybody's bunched up and got a bit closer together, then they're not going to penalise you for that. So don't panic if you find yourself riding close to people up a hill, but just make sure you are not getting an advantage from where you're riding.
Okay. The other thing that Ironman is very strong on, Paul, with regards to the races is littering and graffiti. Yep. And it's an automatic red card and disqualification for either or both of these.
It is, yeah. We're very lucky to race in all the beautiful places that we do race. The residents let us race there, the councils let us race there. If after we leave, they know that we've been there because they can see lots of gel wrappers and banana skins and bottles and all sorts of rubbish left in their hedgerows, they won't want us to come back. It's really as simple as that. And also, you know, if somebody rode past your house and chucked their rubbish in your garden, you wouldn't be very happy about it. So we operate a zero tolerance policy towards all littering on the bike course and on the run course. If you bring it with you, take it back with you. There are litter zones at each aid station. You can leave your rubbish there if you want to.
Paul, can you also explain for the athletes as well what it means when we say in the briefing that you can remove your wetsuit to waist level? However, nudity is forbidden within the course. So if somebody isn't wearing a tri-suit, a man, for example, isn't wearing a tri-suit and his chest is bare, how does that work with regards to running up to transition after the swim with the wetsuit at the waist level?
So from the swim to transition is the only part where gentlemen can be uncovered from the waist up. So you can take your wetsuit down from your shoulders to your waist, but you shouldn't undo it completely or take it off completely until you get into transition. And that's the only part of the course where you can have a bare chest.
Okay. And what about the zipper rule as well? Do we have to have our tri-suit zipped up coming down the finish line, especially for the women?
Right. So coming down the finish line, it should be done up for the women and for the men. For the rest of the race, it can be undone as long as it is fastened at the bottom.
Okay. Just an important rule in case anybody has a query, on it. Paul, is there any other tips or insight that you could give our athletes before we bring our race directors on? We're going to keep you on the call here as well, but just from your own perspective, you've been involved with Ironman for quite a long time. You're an athlete yourself, and you've been head referee for a long time with Ironman UK and Ireland. So from your perspective, what are the most important things that the athletes need to remember when they're racing?
Make sure you read the rules, because if you don't know what you're supposed to do, you might struggle and you might come a cropper for something that's quite silly. Enjoy the race, really. As long as you know what the rules are, most of them are common sense, and that's the most important thing to remember. If you're doing something that's slightly dangerous or is unsafe, those are the sort of things that will be covered by the rules. If you ride sensibly, and enjoy yourself. You'll have a great day.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm going to invite our race directors back on again. So Lewis, Rebecca and Dean, if you could come back onto the call for me. And Paul, we'll keep you as well. So those of you who are joining the call live tonight, if you want to ask questions now into the chat box, I know that we do have Freya and Sarah answering those questions for you, some of them online. But if there are any burning questions you want to ask our race directors, please do feel free to pop them into the chat box. I think let's go back to the basics maybe with regards to the first point of arrival at an Ironman event, and talk us through registration. Now, I don't mind which one of you take this, Lewis, Dean or Rebecca, but what do the athletes need when they go to registration, and how can they make registration as easy as possible? Lewis, I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, I'll jump in and then I'll let the others add in if they want to. So I think probably the easiest part for transition is to plan how you're going to get to transition. So if you just turn up. So
sorry, Lewis, I went straight back into registration actually, just in terms of the first touch point with Ironman is when we register to race on site at the day we go pick up our bib numbers. I just wanted to talk about that process maybe a little bit if possible.
Yeah, of course. So once you go into the registration tent, you'll be met by our wonderful athlete services team. So what you will need is your QR code to scan in, and then they will direct you in from there. You'll then get all your race numbers and your bag from there.
From there. Oh, sorry, from the team there. So you also get your helmet stickers, your bike stickers, your swim cap, all of the bits that are necessary for registration. But there's on-site bib printing this year, which means that the race lists are online. Your name is online, but there's no bib number with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you'll get allocated a number on site, and then you'll get your race number and your sticker sheet for all of the bike, the helmet, and all the other bags as well.
And so for both Ironman UK and Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire, there's a split transition. What does that mean?
So go on, Dave.
I'll try to take this one. Yeah, so that does add an extra level of complexity and a bit more time required for your days for the events where we have a split transition, which is only 70.3 Staffordshire and Ironman UK Bolton this year. The others are all single transition. So that means that you will, once you've done registration, you'll leave with your various bags, red, white, and blue bags. In the case of Bolton, you'll then take your red bag to transition 2, which is walking distance from Bolton Town Centre, and similarly in Staffordshire, transitions right by registration. So you can rack your red bag quickly. Then it's a drive down to the remote start area, so Pennington Flash for Bolton or Chase Water for Staffordshire. So you drive down there, and then that's where you rack your blue bag and your bike at transition 1, and then you keep your white bag with you for race morning.
Okay, so logistically, this causes a lot of stress for the athletes. So what is your top insider tip for sorting out and getting yourself to transition 1 on Saturday? Generally, we open transition 2 on the Friday and the Saturday, don't we? I know in Staffordshire it's open on Friday evening and Saturday, that you can drop your red bag on either day. Is that the same with Ironman UK, Dean, this year?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, open all day Friday for dropping your red bag.
So does it make sense for people to drop their bags on Friday and just have that stress gone? So the red bag has all of your run kit, your trainers, the things you're going to need for the run course. And then you drop your blue bag with your bike and your bike kit that you require, like your helmet, your race number, all those bits and pieces to transition on the Saturday. Yeah,
for sure. It's one less thing to do on the Saturday. So if you are in town and registering in Bolton, registration for Bolton's open on Thursday as well. So if you register on the Thursday or the Friday, then get your red bag when you register and go and rack it as soon as you can. That's one thing ticked off then. And then when you go down to Pennington Flash, my tip for the Saturday, I'll say it quietly, is park at Morrison's rather than going right into Pennington Flash. The little road in and out of Pennington Flash can get very busy. It's a 5-minute walk from under the main road from the Morrisons. You can park there for 3 hours. So if you just park there, walk over, it's a 5-minute walk. You probably save yourself 20 minutes or more sitting in queues, getting in and out of the little road in and out of Pennington Flash. but don't tell Morrison's I said that.
Perfect. One of the big things that's coming through here are questions regarding pre-race swim familiarisation. Lewis, do we have that in Staffordshire?
Yeah, we have a swim the day before, so Saturday the 10th of June. That's from 10 to 11:45. If you do want to take part in that, you will have to be registered on the event and have all your stickers, and you'll need to wear your race day swim hat there as well.
Dean, for Pennington Flash, will athletes have access to that before race day?
Yeah, same. So on the Saturday mornings, it's for an hour, 10 to 11 on the Saturday morning. So if you do register on the Thursday or Friday and drop your red bag in Bolton, and then Saturday morning you can come down with your blue bag and your bike and then do the practice swim as well if you'd like to do so.
Great. And then Rebecca, is there a practice swim in the dock?
Unfortunately not. We've got the World Triathlon Para Series there on Saturday, so unfortunately they're using the water, so we can't have swim practice in Swansea.
Okay, so people need to be in the water themselves beforehand, getting used to the open water. With those swim practices that we do have, you don't actually get to swim the full course. Is that correct? You get to swim, maybe the last 500 meters or so, and you can do that as many times as you want within the allocated swim practice time. Is that correct, Lewis? I see you nodding your head there.
Yeah, that's correct. So there'll be a laid out course of around sort of 400 or 500 meters. You'll go in at the swim X, sort of just next to the swim exit, but you will be exiting the water on swim exit, which will be the swim exit on race day. So you can practice getting out and then sort of looking at where you're going to go and head towards transition from there.
Okay, a few people asking there in the chat, sorry Dean, a few people asking there about the QR codes and when they'll receive those for registration.
They're on a confirmation email.
Yeah,
that you've been.
Race week confirmation email. They'll get the QR codes.
Okay, perfect. And then with regards to the swim practice, Dean, do the athletes have to register for that in particular, or can they just turn up once they have been through the race registration process in Crompton Hall on the Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, so you definitely need to register with Ironman first, pick up all your race kit from registration, but then there's no specific registration for swim practice, just turn up for that 10 to 11 slot. And I would, particularly for people who perhaps not that experienced in lake swims, I would certainly recommend it. Both the Chasewater, the Staffordshire and Bolton, they are lakes. The water can be a little darker, more murky than you would expect in the sea or, of course, in a pool. There can be weeds, things like that. So getting yourself acclimatized to the kind of the atmosphere, how the water feels and so on is definitely a good step to take if you can make it down for that practice swim.
That's a great tip, I think, Dean, as well, because people can get a shock when they get into the lake or into fresh water, because it is quite different to swimming in the sea. There's not as much buoyancy, but you definitely don't have jellyfish. So that's a bonus. Okay, so somebody's asking, what time is the age group start at Staffordshire and what time would it be recommended to get there? So Lewis, over to you for that one.
So the male pro start will be at 7 o'clock and the age group rolling start will be at 7:05. So you'll obviously seed yourself in your expected sort of swim time, and you're going from there, and that will be over the course of 45 minutes for the age groupers. So the last athlete in the water will be around 7:50.
Okay, explain that a little bit more for me, Lewis, for our first timers, or maybe Rebecca, do you want to jump in there as well, because you have a similar setup as well for the 70.3 in Swansea. So what does that actually mean? You self-seed yourself according to your predicted swim time.
Yeah, so basically this is to make the swim start as calm as possible for everybody. So basically, if you know you are a 45-minute swimmer for a 70.3, plonk yourself by the 45-minute sign. It ultimately means that you won't be swum over by athletes that are quicker. So it just makes your swim experience much safer, much more enjoyable. I know from experience, you don't want to be swum over. So really just know if it's not exact, it's absolutely fine. If you're a bit more of a nervous swimmer or you want to take time when you enter the water, you can always put yourself 5 minutes later, just so you've got that time to chill in the water for a second before you swim. But really it is just to make your race better. It doesn't affect your cutoff times. Everyone's time depends on when they cross the start timing mat. So don't worry about trying to be with the pros. If you're a 50-minute swimmer, please go with the 50-minute swimmers. So that's all based on your own timings. So really it is you'll see on race day there'll be some yellow signs held up by volunteers or on the or put up on the lampposts and things. So just look out for that, and if you've got any questions, just ask a volunteer and they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
And so that brings me nicely to my next question, Paul Lester, which is coming to you. Talk to me about cut-off times, what they are, why we have them, and there's two different types. Do you want to talk us through the different scenarios, please?
Yeah, so because it's an Ironman event, part of being able to say at the end of the day, I've achieved a 70.3 or I've done an Ironman, is to have done it within the cut-off times. There are, as you said, there are two types. There are ones for each discipline. So for the swim, for a 70.3, you have 1 hour and 10 minutes. For an Ironman event, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. For the bike, you have 5 hours and 30 minutes. That includes the swim and the first transition for a 70.3. So you must have finished the bike 5.5 hours after you started your swim. For an Ironman event, that's 10.5 hours. So that's the Ironman swim, transition, and full bike course within 10.5 hours. For the full event, it's 8.5 hours for a 70.3 and 17 hours for an Ironman. Alongside those cutoffs, out on the bike course, there are some intermediate cutoffs as well. Those are so we can get the roads open, so that the residents who live out there and the businesses can reopen and can get customers in and can go about their normal daily lives without having to worry about all of you out on the bike course. These are really carefully calculated to make sure if you are cut off at one of those points, you would not have been able to get to T2 within the 5.5 or the 10.5 hours. So although you might feel that they are difficult to achieve, if you don't achieve those, you would not have got to T2 within the cut-off times for the whole of the bike course.
Okay. The intermediate cut-offs, Paul, they are worked out based on the last possible athlete. That's what you're telling us. That basically, by the time you get to the last bike cut-off or the last run lap cut-off, it's based on the potential slowest athlete on the course. So everybody really should be able to make it to that point.
Yeah, so it's assuming that somebody came out of the swim in 1 hour and 10 minutes or 2 hours and 20 minutes, then spent 10 minutes in transition, which is the cut-offs for both of those. And then we work out how much time they would have had to get to T2 and proportion that for the distance where the cut-off will be. Then add on a little bit of contingency in case somebody's had a chain come off or something, like a minor mechanical en route. So we give them 4 or 5 minutes extra to allow for that.
Okay. So all of that information will be on the race briefing as well for each individual race, and obviously the general standard times of your cutoff times of 8.5 hours and the intermediates between that for your 70.3 and the 17 hours and the intermediates between that for swim, bike and run will remain as standard, but then each race has its own individual time of day cutoffs, and it's important that the athletes know these, and they're all detailed in the briefings. Dean, we have a question there on what time the age group start is for Bolton.
So 6 a.m. will be the first athlete in the water, and the last athlete in the water will be shortly before 6:30. It's a kind of over 25-minute window. So we'll start with the faster athletes. Again, you'll self-seed, like was mentioned by the other guys there. So you'll self-seed. Quicker swimmers will go in first, and the slower ones will self-seed in the to start a little bit later on. So from around might be 6:20 if you're one of the aiming for a 2-hour plus swim.
Okay, we do have a question here. Is there a maximum time you can spend in transition? Now that is a similar question to how long is a piece of string, but when you tie in the cutoffs and the timing cutoffs, then there is almost a maximum time you can spend in transition. But I guess it depends on what time you get there, at what point in the race, and whether it's after your swim or your bike. Paul Lester, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, we do state that there is a 10-minute cutoff for your transition, both T1 and T2. We've never actually stopped anybody who has spent more than that in transition. We had to put it in place because we had a gentleman one year who came last out the water. He made the swim cutoff and then proceeded to take about an hour and a quarter in transition. He was no way going to make the first bike cutoff, but he went out and we had half a dozen people following him, and he was the only person for about 6 miles on the course. So what we don't want is somebody taking a ridiculous amount of time in transition. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's asking here, do the bike cutoffs take into account slow seeded swimmers starting a long time after the gun?
Yes, is the simple answer to that. They do. As I said, they will the cutoffs, the intermediate cutoffs, allow for the slowest possible person to get to transition to within the final bike cutoff. Generally, if you are cycling at 15 miles an hour, either on a 70.3 or an Ironman event, you will be okay. You need to average about 15 miles an hour.
Okay. Dean, we're going to talk very briefly about the personal needs bags. Only available at full distance events, not available at 70.3, but there is some new procedures for this year for personal needs. Can you talk us through what the situation is with those for this year, please?
Yeah, so the personal needs bags, just recap what they are. That's if you need any additional nutrition or medication or whatever else it might be on the bike and run course. You can these can be dropped off at on race morning, and then we take them to the personal needs location on the bike and run courses, and you can access them each lap on the bike and run course. If you don't have to use these. I would say probably most people choose not to. It's not essential at all. If you do have something you'd like to store in it, then yes, you need to register that in your active account. Like do it now. There's around half of the bags that we've got available have already been kind of allocated. People have already claimed them. So if you do want to use a personal needs bag, then yeah, register that through your active account. I think you have to do it as an additional purchase, I believe, but there's no charge for it.
And I think it's key to note as well for the personal needs, Dean, is that anything that goes into the personal needs bags doesn't come back at the end of the race. The personal needs bags aren't gathered at each of the aid stations or the aid stations where they're located on the race day, that they do not come back. So don't be putting expensive items in there that you want to have, because they do not come back to the athletes.
That's right. Yeah. So your white bag you'll collect at the finish line. Blue and red bag you collect at T2, and then the personal needs bags, they don't get returned. So that's just any kind of consumable items that you may need from the course.
Okay, and that brings me nicely now into a new situation that was introduced last year, a new opportunity for supporters to collect the bike and red and blue bags for the athletes. A supporter can be nominated for an athlete to do this. How does that process work for this year, Dean?
Yes, that's not just for the full distance races. That's for the 70.3s as well. You can have a supporter collect your bike for you. So Bolton from the finish line to Queen's Park, it's probably a 15-minute walk when your legs are working properly. A lot longer walk after a full distance Ironman. So if you would like a supporter to collect your bike for you, they need to come with you to registration, and then they'll be given a wristband with a matching number, so that we can identify that they are the correct person to be collecting the right bike and bag. Same for Staffordshire, is a bit of a walk from finish line back to transition, probably similar 15-20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less. But if you want an athlete a spectator to collect it for you, then they need to come with you to registration and have the wristband put on by the team at registration.
Okay, we have a couple of questions coming in on nutrition, but I think most of the information with regards to the on-course nutrition with the partners there is in the athlete guide, particularly details on what's at each aid station. I do know we have Gatorade, Morton gels, 226ers bars and Red Bull across all of the races this year, but any additional information is actually on the athlete guide. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Yeah, exactly as you say. The specific information will be in the athlete guides, but they are generally the same across most races, 70.3 and then slightly more at full distance.
Okay, somebody asking here a question with regards to inhalers. Salbutamol for 70.3 Staffordshire. Paul Lester, do you want to come in on that?
Yep, you can use your inhaler if you want it after the swim. There's a table at the swim start where you can leave things like glasses and inhalers and things like that. I think you have a bag to put it in with your number on, or you can write your number on the bag, leave it on the table, and it will be at the swim exit for you, and you can use it then or take it on the bike with you. Yeah, inhalers.
Perfect. Rebecca, over to you again for Swansea. What time does transition open on race day, and when do we need to be at the swim start line versus the time of the wave start?
So transition opens at 5, so typically 2 hours before race start. Race start is at 7. It's probably a 5-minute walk from transition, but transition will shut about 6:30, 6:45. So we do recommend athletes are at swim start for 7 for the pro starting. But you can wait with your family and things. You don't have to go straight in the corral. So if you are a 60-minute swimmer, you don't have to be waiting for 60 minutes in the corral. You can stand with your family and friends and then go in afterwards. So no pressure, but we sort of do recommend being there for swim start at 7, just so you're there, you're ready, and you can sort of relax into what's happening.
Okay, perfect. Lewis, a general question. Are we likely to be lapped by quicker swimmers if we're in the 90-minute plus wave? Sorry, this would be for Bolton, actually. Yeah. If we're in the 90-minute plus wave.
Trying to think around the timing. So 90-minute plus. There's a chance you would be, yes, at that yes. kind of time. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and yes. Then another question for you, Dean, with regards to the conditions of the roads on the Ironman UK bike leg. Will potholes be filled in prior to the race?
So as part of our preparations for the race, we do conduct a road surface assessment. So we go around and note all the potholes and any other road defects that we think would cause a safety concern. So that has been done for all these 3 races we're talking about now. Rebecca's actually finishing off the last bit of the Bolton course tomorrow for the section that's recently changed, and we note those, pass them on to the council with requests that they are repaired. Usually that will be done. There are some cases where the pothole can develop between us doing the assessment and the race, or other defects can appear. So if there are other defects that we know are a safety hazard, then they'll be marked usually with orange paint on the day, or you may see signs that say uneven surface, things like that. So they'll either be repaired or they'll be made noticeable to the athlete.
Okay, somebody else asking here, what time do we need to arrive on the morning of Ironman UK? Around 5 a.m. for a 6 a.m. start. I think the general rule is like 90 minutes before your race is what we would recommend to athletes. And there are, of course, shuttle buses running for both Staffordshire and Bolton, to both locations, to Chasewater and to Pennington Flash. The shuttle buses start really early in the morning, Dean, for Bolton.
Yeah, first bus leaves Bolton at 3:20.
Nice and early.
Nice and early, yeah. I guess so that coincides with getting to Pennington Flash, getting dropped off, and then the short walk over in time for transition opening at 4 a.m. So the transitions are all open 2 hours before the start. A lot of people do like to get there 2 hours and spend their time checking the bikes and getting ready and warming up and putting your nutrition on, sorting out your Garmin, whatever else it might be. I would say 90 minutes is about the right amount of time.
Okay, another question for you with regards to access to bags on race day, especially I suppose with the split transitions. No access to red bags for Stafford and Bolton, but there is access in the morning on race day to your blue bags for Stafford and Bolton. Rebecca, I see you nodding your head. Have we access to bags in Swansea on race day?
Yeah, you can access both because it's single transition in Swansea.
Okay, so this is something that we didn't usually do at Ironman UK. I think we introduced it towards the end of last year, where you could access your blue bags, but we can't confirm there's access in Staffordshire and Bolton to your blue bag on race morning.
You've got access to your blue bag race morning, but not the red bag. Yeah, so it's a great opportunity, especially if it's weather's hot, to put some nice cold drinks in your bike as well. And yeah, plenty of access in the morning.
Okay. We haven't touched on World Championship slot allocation or roll down or awards or anything like that. Lewis, how many slots have you got for the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in Lahti in Finland?
So we have 45 slots at the awards, plus 15 women for try slots as well. So a total of 60 slots.
Brilliant. Dean, for Bolton, we have a mix of Ironman Nice and Ironman Kona.
That's right. Yeah. So there's 100 slots for the men for Nice, and 60 slots for the women for Kona. So there's yeah, good chance if you are interested in, if you are keen on racing in Kona or Nice or either the World Championships, then definitely do come along to the awards. There's a good chance of slots rolling down as well. So yeah, good chance if you do come along.
And make sure that you leave your wristband on when you come to awards, and that you bring your ID and your credit card as well, so that you can process your race entry. Rebecca, for Swansea this year, it's earlier than it was last year. So is it a qualifier for Finland, or is it a qualifier for the 2024 Ironman 70.3 World Championship?
It is for 2024. So it's one of the first races for 2024 World Champs.
And how many slots do you have for New Zealand?
Not confirmed at the moment, but probably very similar to Ironman 70.3, so probably around 40, I'd say.
Okay, brilliant. I think we might be nearly at the end of our questions from the audience tonight. So maybe just to go around the room quickly, if you were to give one top tip to an athlete for the racing season this year, what would it be? And Paul Lester, I'm going to come to you first.
Do some training. Get out there and ride your bike. The sun's shining. What could be better? Yeah, just do lots of training, but keep it sensible.
Okay, brilliant. Rebecca?
My big one is, please have a look at the bike courses before race day. Know what to expect. Know what gear you need to be in if there's a climb coming. Ultimately, it will make your day better if you don't have a mechanical, if you're not snapping chains and things. So yeah, please recce the routes, and that'd be great.
Brilliant. Dean?
I'm going to make it a specific one to Bolton. When you start on the bike course, when you mount the bike, for the first few hundred meters, please just have your both hands on the handlebars. Don't be turning your Garmin on or sorting out your water bottle or anything. There's some quite significant speed bumps on the way out, and I've seen people have mechanicals on those on the way out. They've crashed going over the bumps. I've seen a wheel hub break because they just hit it too hard and things. So please take it easy over those speed bumps. It's heartbreaking to see people lose their race, be out of the race that early on. So yeah, Bolton, keep your hands on the handlebars, take it steady the first few hundred meters out of the bike.
Great advice. Lewis?
I'm gonna have two, because I'm going to be greedy. So the first one's specific to Staffordshire, very similar to Dean. When you leave transition, don't get down into your TT position straight away. You have to go over the dam, and that dam, similar to what Dean has just said, is uneven and has a few speed bumps on there as well. So don't settle in too soon. Get over that dam, and then there's some nice flat roads that you can get into your TT position and get a bit more comfortable and get into a nice rhythm. And the second one is learn how to replace a puncher. So quick change and practice it on rides. When you're tired, yeah, pop the front wheel off, change the inner tube, put the wheel back on, put the tire back on, pump it up, practice. You know how to use your CO2 or your pump, and go again.
Okay, brilliant. Some more questions coming in here. Somebody says, actually, a bit of advice: tether your Garmins for staffs. There's a few speed bumps at the start. That's from somebody who knows the course well. And then somebody's actually asking here if we plan to have a similar session for the Irish races, that they're not even racing any of these three races, but found the session very informative. So I do believe there may be plans to do something similar for Cork later in the year. Somebody mentioning here just the changing rooms. So with regards to transition, all the bags are stored in the tents, but you change outside. Is that correct? Rebecca, do you want to take that for me?
So it depends on the race. So there'll always be new changing available. So if you're swimming in a swimming costume and you want to change into a tri-suit or bib shorts, etc., there'll always be that available, but it does depend on the race if it's outdoor changing or inside the tent.
Okay, I know with Staffordshire, Lewis, the bags are all in the tent in transition 1 and transition 2, but you go outside to get changed, or to put on your shoes or to put on your helmet. You do that in the changing area before you actually go out to your bike.
Yeah. So you want to take your bag and swap. So for a blue bag, you want to make sure you've got all your bike stuff out, your helmet on, and you put your wetsuit and your goggles and your swim hat all back into the blue bag, and then you'll pass it to a volunteer who will then re-rack it. That blue bag will then magically appear at transition 2 when you go to collect your bike and your red bag.
Brilliant. We just have one query here, Paul, with regards to the littering rule. If a water bottle cage fails and you unintentionally drop a bottle, is it expected that you go back and collect? As for example, downhill, it may not be the safest to stop to attempt to collect it.
No, we don't want you going back against the flow of athletes. The littering rule is an intentional littering rule. So if you drop a gel wrapper whilst you're trying to get it into your back pocket, that won't class as littering. You need to make an effort to do it. Yeah. If you deliberately chuck something away, so if you're flinging it into the hedge, that's littering.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to everybody who joined us as an attendee this evening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some information. Don't forget, the key place to go for your information is the online athlete guide. I can't impress on you how much it is so important to go through the online guide. The team will be on site for each of the races in the week leading up to it, so be sure to keep an eye out for them at each of the races. And in the meantime, if you do have queries for each of the individual races, please do make sure that you email them. Specifically, our athlete services team are excellent at coming back to queries and customer service and everything as well. So they're managing all the behind the scenes for all of the races across Ireland and the UK this year again. So a fantastic team. Huge thank you to our race directors, to Lewis, who was first out of the blocks for this year. Best of luck to you for your race. Dean at Ironman UK in Bolton, and Rebecca for Swansea. And I believe she's also the race director for Wales later on. And of course, Paul Lester, huge thank you to you for joining us as well. You're the one person nobody really wants to see on race weekend, but we wish you a very successful season as well. Thank you so much to Adam and the team as well for organising tonight. And if you're looking back at this after the session, well, we hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on a finish line very, very soon. Thank you, everybody. Good night.